All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of What's What VR. We have two special guests, first-time guests with us today. We have Kyra and Tara from VIPS. How are you guys?
Good. How are
Hi, I'm
you?
great.
Awesome. We appreciate y'all being with us. You had a busy week last week. I know you had your luncheon and had a bunch of people there. I was one of the ones that were there. But to jump us off for anybody, Kai, can you tell us maybe what is your day-to-day role? What are you doing at VIPS and what is VIPS?
Okay, well, Volunteers in Public Schools is VIPS. We're a independent nonprofit organization that serves East Baton Rouge Parish Public Schools. And we do that through bridging the community with public schools. Individual volunteers can participate in our two tutoring programs for math and reading, and that's for elementary age students. And Tara Schoonover can tell you more details about that. She's our program manager. And we also do community partnerships, which are the arm that I'm over as the Volunteer and Community Partners Director. And we serve elementary, middle, and high schools through community partnerships. And that can look a variety of ways. Community partnerships can be from faith-based organizations, civic organizations, service groups in the collegiate area. So we do get a lot of students that volunteer, retirees, anyone that has a passion for education and literacy and working with children and has, time during the school hours to volunteer, because we serve during the school day directly to our East Baton Rouge Parish Public Schools. Anyone that wants to inspire students, share resources, share their life skills or talents, it can be designed anyway, depending on what they want to share and what the need of the school is for their students.
Sounds like a lot of work. Tara, what's your day, as a program manager? Is that right?
Yeah, so I oversee our programs, Everybody Reads and Everyone Counts, and both of these are one-on-one tutoring programs. Everybody Reads is for pre-K to second grade students that have been identified by their teachers and recommended to our programs. These students are typically performing below grade level in reading. They can be anywhere from 6 months to 2 years behind where they should be in terms of grade level reading. And then our math friends work with K through third grade students on math skills, and they're also recommended. Both programs are held during school hours, but the teachers pick the time. So our volunteers will go in throughout the school day during their assigned time, and they'll pull their student from class or whatever the teacher has said, come and get them and work with them during this time. And then they spend about 30 to 45 minutes a week working with them, reading to them, working on math skills, playing little math games, working on things like sight words. And it's really fulfilling for the volunteers. They sometimes feel like celebrities when they come into the classrooms, because after a couple of visits, the other kids say, will you come read with me? Or, oh, you guys get to have all the fun. So they love it, and the kids love it because they not only get help with these critical life skills in reading and math, but they also get a friend, a consistent adult presence, somebody that they can talk to, somebody that they know cares about them and is encouraging them. And one of the things the teachers notice the most in terms of growth outside of just reading and math skills is that they say the students just become more confident, more engaged in the classroom, more excited. So, that's one of the things we hope for when a kid works with a reading or a math friend, is that they can just overall maybe be more excited to go pick out a book and read, or maybe feel a little more confident figuring out that math problem. Whereas before, maybe they're a little nervous or scared. But with the help of a reading or a math friend, they figure out, okay, I can do it.
Yes. I think one of the big takeaways is the relationships that we manage to build with our volunteers, our partners, and directly with the schools. That's what makes the programs work. Tara is very efficient with developing relationships with our individual volunteer tutors and the teachers that recommend the students, as well as the principals. And we understand the culture and climate of each school and understand their needs. Even with the partnerships, is key to, we also, of course, we vet our volunteers. That's, one of our main things. We want to make sure that whoever is going into the schools is someone that needs to be there. We do background checks with individual volunteers. My main roles is to make sure that we understand what it is the partner is interested in sharing and what age group is most appropriate. Should it be small groups? Should it be, how frequent should this occur? What topics should we do and how things should be presented. So there's a whole grooming process and a collaborative contribution to how we offer partnerships to our schools.
So tell me I think you answered one of my questions, Tara, as you were running through, but it's when you're volunteering, it's not a different child every week. You're kind of paired up with that same group. Is that for
Correct.
a certain time? Is it the whole school year, or when somebody comes in to volunteer, what are they signing up for? Is it the 45 minutes to an hour a week for the whole school year, or as long as we can keep them coming, we're not letting them leave. They've signed up for life.
So typically we do ask them to commit to the full school year, and we usually kick off sometime after Labor Day, give the kids and teachers time to get acquainted with each other. So we train new volunteers pretty much all school year, so you can hop in at any point in the year. But we typically say, whenever you start, try to plan to do this through the end of April or May. Some people end a little earlier depending on their work or school schedule. Like some of our LSU volunteers, they may end at the end of April, whereas our volunteers who are retired or working, they may end at the end of the school year. But yeah, it is a big commitment. It's about once a week throughout the school year. And the whole point of that is they do read with the same student or work with the same student every week. And that brings in the relationship building aspect of it, because we are a tutoring program, but a big part of our programming is also that relationship aspect, giving them somebody that can come in and be consistent in their lives. We never know what our students are dealing with at home. So sometimes this reading friend, one of our principals put it perfectly I think last year in our survey, was that for some of her students at her specific school, the reading friend is the one consistent adult in a lot of their lives. And it's really the highlight of their life at the moment, is just having that one-on-one time with a reading friend. And they're reading and they're challenging them and they're challenging each other. But they also get to have fun. They get to read books that are of interest to them. We really encourage the volunteers to pick out books that are, if your student loves to read about dogs, well, hey, try to bring in some more books about dogs or animals. Or if they say they hate, one little girl told her reading friend, do not bring any books about dinosaurs. So you can imagine if they show up with a book about dinosaurs, she's going to be like, what is this book about a dinosaur? And she may not want to read that book, but it's really about encouraging them, getting them to read things of interest, and develop that relationship with them. So we do a volunteer training session where we go over, the history of VIPS, what to expect, and we also give them ideas on things they can do in their sessions. And one of the things we talk about is the relationship aspect, where there's no set agenda for the volunteers. We do give them kind of an outline. Hey, here's how you can structure your visit every week. But, there's going to be some weeks where maybe you have a student who had something exciting or maybe stressful happen to them within the last week that you saw them, and they may want to spend a little more time talking about it. So, you may not read a full book that week. You may develop that relationship a little more, hear about their cousin's birthday party or their football game for a little bit longer, and then get into the reading. So it's a relationship program with tutoring as well as the main focus.
So it sounds like, I can only imagine, not only, is this needed, but there's got to be a constant effort from you guys this side, because I can't imagine I would like to think there's a lot of people that are volunteering that equal to the number of kids that could probably use the help. But now you got this, I would assume it's not even, right? We have this many kids that need help, and we've got this many volunteers.
There's a huge gap.
There's a very large gap. And ever
Volunteer
since,
recruitment is a constant for us. Yeah. So Tara can go more into detail
yeah.
about the amount of referrals that we get. But yes, we do recruit volunteers and partnerships year round. And we're always looking for opportunities to be in front of groups of people that we can let them know what we do in the community. We're always looking to partner with fellow local community organizations that are doing great work in the community. So we just bridge those organizations or whatever community entities want to help public schools. And because we're a trusted organization that these schools are familiar with, and we had such longevity for the last 40 years serving public schools in this manner, then it's more easy. It's a more of an ease of an introduction to go through VIPS to be introduced to schools, because the principals know who we are and what our purpose is, and they trust that the volunteers have already been vetted. We've been engaged with the partners to understand what it is that they would like to present to the students. And yeah, Tara can speak to the amount of student recommendations that we get for our programs.
Yeah, we have a large gap in the number of kids recommended versus the number paired. I think this year we had around 611 reading friend referrals, and we have 242 of those students paired with a volunteer. And for the math program, that one's a little bit smaller. That program's only available at 8 elementary schools this year, but we had 200 students recommended to that program, and we paired 61 of them with a math friend. But pre-COVID, we had much larger volunteer base. Usually around this time of year, we had anywhere between 400 and 500 volunteers paired with around maybe 600 students. But since COVID, we've had a decline in our volunteer base, and it's also been shifting. Prior to COVID, we had more retired volunteers or maybe working professionals. And since we've been rebuilding after COVID shut the schools down and we were virtual last year, we're seeing more of a shift to having more student LSU Southern University volunteers in our volunteer group. So that's something we're working on rebuilding, especially now. We recruit year round. We host volunteer trainings year round, but usually around the end of February, early March, we cut off our volunteers, like new volunteers coming in for the current school year, and we start training them and recruiting them for the fall. And the reason for that is just because once we hit March, April, they start getting into testing, pre-testing, spring break. So it gets a little harder to get weekly visits in during this time of year. So it's a little harder for a new person to come in with no background on being a volunteer. Sometimes it can be discouraging if they try to go to the school and, the students are testing, so they can't get in. So that's why we kind of cut it off and start training for the fall, because we do want them to develop that relationship as well with their students. And this is kind of a hard time of year to get started. So we're definitely in need for the fall. We're hoping we can build back up and get more people into the schools now that we're back in person.
I've talked to a lot of, groups and, over the last couple of years of doing this show, and it would seem, and I don't know if it's the fact that, I'm an entrepreneur myself, and so I'm wired to be optimistic. Like we can always, solve this problem, but like I'm doing math in my head and it's like, okay, we've got a huge community. We've got a huge business community. Can we not find like 100 businesses to say like, hey, I'll allow 4 of my employees an hour and a half a week, to go get, and like that would solve that deficit, or close
Absolutely.
to it, right? It's like,
Yes.
Can we get 400 people? That's a lot of people, but like 100 businesses, and just say, hey, look, who in your organization could you give, can you give up, I think you said like 45 minutes to an hour, call it an hour and a half a day, like let them go to lunch an hour and a half early, schedule it, one day a week. These are problems that can be solved. And that's what I guess I get frustrated sometimes, because it's like, this is not hard. The math works. It's probably, I guess, Kaia, from your side, it's like, that's where you're out talking to people saying, hey, come volunteer, do this. But, in my mind, I go to where are the businesses that we can call out and say, these are the people, that you're going to be hiring, in the future. I told somebody the other day on the show, and it kind of messed with their head, I think, a little bit. For years, I've heard people complain about, millennials, and the millennials working. And we were on the show and it hit me. I was like, wait a minute. I'm like, you realize millennials are like 40 now.
Right.
Like, are we still complaining about this? Like, they're
Right.
40-year-old adults. Can we move on? But I bring that these, next time you turn around, these are the kids that are going to be coming. This is who's going to be taking your, fast food order one day as a teenager. This is
Right.
who's going to be coming into your office. And so to make that community investment of, hey, I've got a couple people, they can spare an hour and a half, and then we could solve that gap.
Right.
It seemed like
I
that'd
love
be the
that.
way to do it.
Yeah.
That's a great point. That's something that when I'm recruiting, I point out, even if you're not necessarily an advocate of public schools, that's fine, because at the end of the day, like you said, all of these students will become members of our community in some capacity. And it's our responsibility to make sure that they are as best equipped as possible, regardless of, whether you advocate for public school or private schools or charter. We need to make sure that we provide what we can. And, we really want businesses to consider those things. That's something also that we've been advocating for, to ask businesses, hey, it's a minimum 30 minutes a week that our studies have shown leave an impact if consistently our students are visited once a week throughout the school year. It's a minimum 30 minutes per week that leave improvements on academic performance. So I agree totally that, maybe we can do a call to action for local businesses to commit to that 30 minutes to let your employees go to a school that's in the immediate neighborhood, to save the time on commute, or even on the way into work, because it depends on, when the teachers say that the student is available to leave class without missing pertinent academics, maybe coming into class, coming into work, or the lunchtime, that 30 minutes can leave such a difference on the student's performance.
Well, that's the bow that I was going to try to tie back with my millennials that are 40, story is, you hear this, that people are looking for, and what I believe, with our staff and with most people's staff, and, things have changed a little bit, a lot, you don't work for 50 years and get the gold watch anymore. And so people have got to, and we're the millennials from what I understand. I hate being the guy I always say I'm not going to talk about millennials in that way, but it's the impact, like being able to help with and do things, being part of that community. And I think that's where, if employers, if we can, like, if I might be wrong, and I might get a lot of hate mail over, but it's like, if you can't give up, a couple people for an hour and a half a week, we really need to prioritize and relook at what's going on inside the organization, because I'm sure you can squeeze out a little bit of time,
Sure.
to help
Right.
out, and it'll make a difference.
It's
It does.
definitely an
And Brian,
investment.
it is, and investment back even into the business, right, Tara? Yes. Even if the once a week one-on-one commitment throughout the school year is, beyond the scope of something realistic for an individual or a business, partnerships lend for more flexibility. Ultimately, we want consistent partnerships where these schools have built a relationship with these organizations or these entities. Partnerships are more of a group-based thing, but we do have partnerships of individual volunteers that have like a nonprofit or have certain initiatives. So, that can be once a month. That can be every other week. It can be as needed, that the school knows that they can call this partner to help with their maybe school events, or to sponsor something, or, come in and share something that will inspire the students. So there is more flexibility with that. Ultimately, an ideal volunteer experience or partnership would be something more regularly done and consistent. We don't turn anyone away.
I picture, trying to find a way to, kind of call out on that business community, to where it's like, I'm picturing, like, if it's like I said, if we need 4 people, if it's a business owner's giving up, 4 hours a week, 4 people for a week, it's to them, it's, productivity, it's hours, yes, it's people too. But if you went and said, okay, we're going to do that every week, if we got a month, it's like, okay, can we, where's the thermometer? Do we say like, let's go for like 1,000 hours, from the business community to commit to, and that could help solve the problem, to where if, 4 hours a week, 4 weeks, 4.3, whatever, something like that, rounded up to 20 hours. So businesses could say, we'll commit to 20 hours a week from our staff. We can find, 4 hours between the staff, some people within the group, they can do that. And what I think happens, just the way things go, I can't imagine anyone who does that, who goes in and is going to do it in a vacuum. And by that, I mean, they're not going to put it on their social media that they went to the school. They're not going to talk to a friend or a sibling or a parent or someone else in the office, or that they're just not going to tell anybody. And so if they tell people, they go to dinner that Friday night, well, hey, this morning I got to go in late to the office because I went into such and such school, and read with with a child for about, 30, 45 minutes. And I got to go into the office. It was really cool. Everybody in the office was talking about it. Kind of a little morale helped because we were helping, as a whole. And then somebody else in the office decided. And then that person you're telling that to at dinner says, maybe we should look into that. And they mention it to their, like, this could be a domino, effect.
Yes.
If we went and pushed
Word of mouth, we found, is one of our strongest recruitment tools. So you are spot on with that idea. And even, businesses or any organization or group that wants to partner, they can rotate, like you say, set a certain amount of hours that they volunteer per week. They can rotate who that group of people is. Ideally, the same people would be great, but we understand that, there has to be some accommodation depending on the business or the organization and what works best for them. But you can just say, we're just going to commit to this amount of hours per week to this school, and we'll send representatives of our business or, our group. And it could be alternating people.
No, I think that might be the way. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe we can find a way to work on that. To really just, I know some people I could call out. I probably won't call them out right now, but so
we'll talk later.
Yeah, we'll find a way to do that. So tell me, before I let you run, some of the partnerships that you are working with right now, who are some of these people that have really just kind of helped lift you guys up and push along that direction?
Oh man, we have some amazing churches. First United Baptist, First Methodist. Then we also have Atmos Energy, who has been phenomenal. We have Line for Line, which is a local barbershop, O'Neill's Barbershop. They come in and set up like a real barbershop and give out haircuts to elementary students while they're reading a book. Atmos has just been phenomenal with doing some sponsorship of our events, as well as hands-on different things. We do first day helpers, where we call out volunteers and partners on the first day of school and just disperse them all over schools to help greet and tag for bus assignments and escort students to class, which helps tremendously for the school staff, as you can imagine. Main event has been absolutely amazing. We have a leadership program that we've launched at Glen Oaks High that's sponsored by Taylor Porter Law Firm. And they help with some of the supplies and items that the students need, and just support that special group of 20 students that participate in the program. It's a year-long program that they meet once a week. The list goes on and on. We have about 150 community partners, I would say. And some of them are just phenomenal and consistent. Tara, who's some standout partners that you can think of?
I think you named them all. We have the Millennial Park Library.
Yes. Flowing Brushes does art. She does organic painting. Of course, we know a lot of these schools' funding art programs has been cut. So she comes in to 2 schools every week and does art with the students, social emotional learning art themed projects with organic plant-based paint that they actually make in the classroom. We have partnerships with Key Care Yoga and Wellness, where they actually do yoga with the students and offer some support for the teachers and staff. I mean, the list just goes on and on. We have some phenomenal, we just joined forces with Campus Federal Credit Union. They're doing financial literacy.
Red Stick Reads.
I'm afraid to leave anyone off. Yes, Red Stick Reads is a local boutique bookstore. The owners come in and read to a class once a month. This is like more of a teacher appreciation thing that we do. And we've also done this with Outdoor and More. So once a month, we ask a principal to select a teacher to have a classroom story time reading for her students. They tell us why they want to acknowledge this teacher. Teacher gets a $25 gift certificate to the bookstore, and all educators actually get 20% off anyway to Red Stick Reads. And they also donate the book to the class.
Well, that's amazing. I guess where I was going with that I wanted people to be able to understand that even if you're not in an education role or reading role, like if you're, painting to natural gas to a credit union to, CPA firms, everybody's got a role here. Everybody
That's
can
right.
take, part, and everybody can do something. And so that's where you can step in. Like I said, if it's volunteering time or if it's just, as your company jumping in and doing something, at the end of the day, what people I think have finally realized, and I'm hoping that they're not forgetting, is a lot of these groups such as yourselves, these nonprofit groups are doing things for our community that other people in private business can't do. But they need the support of private business in order to do those. So hopefully people will remember. I think we learned a lot of that during, the lockdown and a lot of the services that, people needed that they weren't able to get. And then people had to, pivot, much as I hate that word now, and change things, but it's a needed service that a lot of people don't realize. Even if you don't have, children, even if you don't have, maybe your kids are grown and gone, but we're not asking a lot. We're saying, give up an hour, leave for lunch an hour early, stop by a school, knock it out, and then tell, you'll feel great at lunch, and tell whoever you're going to lunch with that day. So
I think what resonates is don't underestimate what you have to contribute. Like you said, you don't have to have an education background. You don't have to have major degrees. Just, know how to read, know how to do math if you want to do tutoring. And again, these students are not performing on grade level. So, you may be paired with a second grader, but they may be performing on a kindergarten level. So keep that in mind as well. And, the community has a wealth of life experiences and resources and talents and skills that can be shared. You never know what a student will draw from your presence at the school and just some words that you said or some activity that you did that will trigger something and inspire them and leave a lasting impression and completely change the trajectory of their life.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you guys coming in and telling us about VIPS and what's going on and how we can help. And then maybe we can keep talking and find a way to call out some of these people. And I've got some names.
Much for having us.
So,
yeah. Yes.
So, all right. Well, I appreciate it. Love to have you guys come back, have an update, kind of how things are going, and we can kind of see what, next steps are. So I appreciate y'all stopping in, and we'll talk soon.